What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Hey everybody, John Van Dyke here for New Jersey Exposed. Today is Sunday, November 13th, 2022. Time is 3:45 p.m. Yes, that is Jersey time. A very windy and somewhat cold Jersey time, I might add. Okay, so many of you out there have probably seen this video already. For those of you who don't get out much and spend all your time doing other things and looking at videos, there's been a story about a legally blind man who was stopped and harassed by some bad cops. So I will play the video for you, and when the video's done, I'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Hi there.
Hey.
What's this in your back pocket? I saw you walking it.
It's a navigational age. What's the problem? You a tyrant?
Yeah, I am actually. What's your name and date of birth?
I don't have to give that unless
Yes,
I'm
sir.
due.
I was investigating.
You have reasonable.
Do you want me to put you in
suspicion.
handcuffs right now? Yes, sir, I do.
What is your suspicion?
It looks like you're carrying a gun in your back pocket. I'm stopping to make sure you're carrying it properly. You don't
have
have
you
to.
ensured that it's not a firearm?
No, you keep turning so I can't see it. You don't have to be a dick to me.
Well, you're being one to me.
No, sir. I'm doing my job.
Am I detained?
Yeah, you are. What's your name and date of birth?
It does not matter.
Yes, sir, it does.
Do you have a crime?
Would you like me
Call
to
your
put you in?
supervisor,
He's right.
All right.
You don't.
Sir, what's she stop you for? For a walking stick.
So,
And it could look like a weapon. She asked you to present it, okay? Now she's asking me for ID. Okay. I don't need the ID unless there's reasonable articulated suspicion that I have committed a crime, am committing a crime, or about to do a crime.
Sir, and her suspicion was that you were armed, okay? And she's asking you for your ID.
Well, now she has verified that I am not armed. Okay. So there is no
you
problem.
have your ID or not?
I do have my ID, but you don't need it.
Okay. Okay.
All right, what do you think, huh? Is this bad cops or what? Well, I got some notes here, so we're going to go down the notes that I made up, and we'll talk about this. And then, after we get done with this, I'm going to play another video, which is the Sheriff's Department response to everything went down. All right, so you see in the video where this guy's walking down the street, minding his business. How many times have we seen that scenario before? A guy walking down the street, minding his business, and next thing you know, one of these government sellout, one of these narcissistic, bad cops shows up. It's a female, no less. She's probably a carpet muncher, so we'll call her Officer Carpet Muncher. And this happens down in Columbia, Columbia County in Florida. So she stops the guy, as you can see, and she demands ID. Now, let me say something about this guy here. This guy apparently has a YouTube channel, and I got a feeling he watches First Amendment audits because this man had an idea what his rights were, and he stood up and he stood his ground on his rights. So she demands ID. Well, first of all, she says, what do you got in your pocket there? Is that a gun? You know, they always got to escalate. Bad cops always have to escalate because they always have this need to dominate over other people. That's what a narcissist does. A narcissist has to be important and has to show you who's in charge. So she demands, what's going on in that pocket there? Is that a gun? And the guy says, no, it's a walking aid. I'm blind. And he pulls it out and he shows it to her. He says, okay, can I see your ID? And of course he says, no ID for you, honey. But you know how these bad cops are. It's like a drug. They got to have it. They got to have that ID. And he says, well, what do you suspect me of? And it's nice because he says, what do you think that is that I've done or I'm doing or about to do? What is it? Of course, she does not articulate any of that. And now it's starting to escalate because we know that these bad cops, narcissistic cops, get their egos hurt when you challenge them and take their authority away from them. Because remember, narcissists have to be in control, and by doing what he did, he's pulling the control away from her. So, all right, so let's see what goes on here. So anyway, so now there's a sergeant that he demands he wants to see a supervisor, and a sergeant shows up, a deputy sergeant shows up, and of course he's in on the whole thing too. He's a bad cop, so he's just going to back her up. You know, I've already learned this firsthand. I experienced this over in Tinton Falls last Easter of 2021, where I get one of these bad cops shows up, and you can see that he's an idiot, and we're not getting anywhere. And I request a supervisor who shows up, a corporal shows up, which is just one step above a road cop. And of course, they're all in it together, they're all teammates, so one's going to support the other, and that's what happens. So he just goes at it with the sergeant, and what's the charge, what's this, what's that, and they finally put the handcuffs on him. They're going to arrest him. Who the hell knows what's going to go on? It looked like in the beginning there that she was going to let him go. So they get his ID, and she says, "Oh, was that so hard?" And he, what did he say? Let me see. She says, "Was that hard?" And Hodges, the guy's name is James Hodges. He says, "It's going to be hard. I want your name and badge numbers." And that just totally triggered the sergeant. And see, the sergeant's had a career. He's been on the job a lot longer. And he's used to everybody bowing down and kissing his feet and giving him a reach around and everything else. And Hodges, you know, triggered that ego. That ego is very dangerous. And that's the problem that these narcissistic cops have, is you cannot... the minute you question them and take away their authority, that triggers them. And what's the cop do? The sergeant does is what any other bad cop would do. He's going to arrest him. That's right, arrest him for resisting arrest. Well, first of all, how was he resisting arrest when he wasn't even arrested? I mean, he was detained. They put handcuffs on him. But in the video, I didn't hear anything saying where he was being arrested for doing something. So they're going to arrest him for that. And basically what happened, why that man was arrested, was because he invoked his rights. The cops did not like that. Bad cops did not like that. And they do what they know to do best, which is to arrest you. Because, as I've said a million times, it costs a cop nothing to arrest you. And it costs you everything to defend yourself. However... not so quick, not in this case. All right, so we're going to play the video now of the sheriff's department, the boss, the head sheriff, and things didn't work out so well for those two deputies.
Good afternoon, Sheriff Mark Hunter. I'm here today to update you and provide some information that will hopefully answer questions many of you have regarding this situation. On October 31st, shortly after 8 a.m., two of our deputies encountered Mr. James Hodges walking near the intersection of Marion Avenue and East Duval Street. The interaction resulted in the arrest of Mr. Hodges. Body cam footage that was provided to Mr. Hodges of this incident has recently been circulated across many outlets and has resulted in our office receiving a number of calls from concerned citizens. I want to begin with a timeline of the initial events. Mr. Hodges was arrested on October the 31st at 8 a.m. The arresting deputy was Jamie Godey and her supervisor, Sergeant Randy Harrison. On November the 3rd, Mr. Hodges requested body cam footage of the incident. He was provided the footage the same day. During the review process, prior to it being released, a likely policy violation was discovered. Since the incident involved a patrol sergeant, the patrol lieutenant and captain were made aware of the incident. The patrol lieutenant and captain were directed to investigate the incident further and began that day, November the 3rd. Mr. Hodges had not yet filed a formal complaint when the patrol commanders were instructed to investigate this matter. Arrangements were made that day for Mr. Hodges to complete a sworn statement at a later date upon his availability. The administrative investigation concluded the afternoon of 11/7, and allegations of policy violations against these two deputies were sustained. As a result of these findings, Sergeant Harrison will be demoted immediately, suspended without pay for 7 days, and will not be eligible for any favorable action for 2 years. Deputy Godey will be suspended without pay for 2 days. Both deputies will be required to undergo remedial training pertaining to civil rights. As sheriff, I take full responsibility for this event and want to extend my sincere apologies to Mr. Hodges for the actions of my deputies. I do not feel these deputies' actions were guided by ill intent, but rather by frustration and failure to rely on their training. Nevertheless, this conduct is unacceptable. We will continue to work hard and train to ensure these incidents do not reoccur. I do want you to know that I'm deeply saddened of the negative impact that this has on our agency and this situation has caused to us. I want to reassure you that as your sheriff, we do make mistakes, but we take corrective action to fix them. This is how we get better. I want to applaud Mr. Hodges for actually reporting that and requesting the video. That's how we learn. I can promise you that, we're going to work hard to try to get 100%, but we'll never be 100%. No one is. I have no doubt that the remaining employees up here at this sheriff's office, they work their hearts out and want to do you a good job and want to have your trust and respect, as I do. And as your sheriff, I'm going to keep on pushing and trying to make us better every day. And I want you to know we do not take your trust and your respect for granted. We earn it every day. And thank you.
All right, there you go. What do you think? So the sheriff, so this guy, Jim Hodges, he really is a hero. Somebody should do a video. Anybody down there in Florida, you get a hold of that guy and do a video on him. He really is a hero, and he stood his ground. He knew his rights, and he didn't stop just there. He went down and he requested the video, and that got the ball rolling. That got part of the ball rolling. Really what got this all going was that Mr. Hodges got the video, best I can tell, and somehow either he did or somebody else did. That video went on the internet, on YouTube, Facebook, wherever, and it went viral. And now the phone is ringing off the hook, and the sheriff is catching a lot of heat. He's being embarrassed by these deputies, and so he had to respond. So me personally, I don't think that this would have played out the way it did if there was no body cam video and there was no social media. The whole thing would have been played out in court, in criminal court. So, all right, let me go down my notes here. So the sheriff, he receives a bunch of calls. It's not going well for him. He sees the video. He sees policy violations. And he goes and he gets a lieutenant and a captain to look into this. Most likely, we got to do damage control here. And damage control was done. And I was surprised, but not surprised. This Sergeant Harrison, his name, he was suspended for 7 days. He was demoted, and he's not going to see any promotions for at least 2 years. And the other deputy, Deputy Godey, I think her name was, she was suspended for 2 days without pay. And really, my personal opinion is the suspension was not long enough. It should have been a lot longer. I think the sergeant they both should have been, I think the sergeant should have been suspended for like 90 days. And then the officer, Deputy Carpet Muncher there, she should have been suspended for 30 days. However, one could argue she's a deputy, she's just a low-level road cop, and the sergeant shows up, and he's now in control, and he's the one that's orchestrating the whole thing. So really, a lot of it does fall on him, but he does set the example to her as to what is acceptable and not acceptable. And one of the great things is that, this happened very quickly. But I say this because one of the things I've learned from watching these videos and all the nonsense that goes on with these bad cops and how it's handled is that down in like Florida and these other more remote areas, the police unions are not very strong down there. So it's not like here in New Jersey where the PBA is very strong, FOP is very strong, and they're in the pockets of the politicians. And so what happens up here is that the chiefs can't just fire these cops. They got to send them home on a paid vacation. They put them home for a couple of months so things cool off and they can get back to business as usual. But I will say, and I'll give to the sheriff for reacting promptly right away and sending a message to other employees of his department how bad cops are going to be handled. But I really think a lot of it had to do because of the video, phone calls, and this sheriff was embarrassed and he had to save face. He had to do something because if he didn't do something, he was going to look like the bad guy. My only complaint is I don't think that sheriff did near enough. I don't think it was severe enough for the sergeant more than anybody. And let's see what other notes I have. Oh yeah, they're going to send the deputies for remedial training. Well, I happen to think that Police Officer Academy 095, for you those who don't know, if you go to college and you take an 095 course, that means that's like something you should have learned in high school. So you don't really get any credits for it. It's just, you know, before you can get into a real college class, you have to take an 095 course. So they're going to send them in training in civil rights. And it's like, you need to be trained on stopping and detaining somebody. This is like one of the first things they teach you in police academy. When you can detain somebody, how long you can detain them for, the purposes of the detainment, which is to investigate. And when you're demanding ID or requesting, in this case it sounded more like a demand or a coercion to me, that you got to have reasonable articulable suspicion that a crime is afoot or has happened or is going to happen. And none of those officers could articulate any of that. The one of the officer, deputy carpet muncher says, "Oh, I got to make sure you've got it, properly carrying, because Florida's you can carry down in Florida, and if you got a fishing pole, and you're fishing, you can carry it openly." But so that was her excuse. But as soon as he showed her that, look, this is a collapsing walking stick, that should have been the end of it. They should, okay, sir, you have a nice day. Sorry for the inconvenience. No, because their ego's not going to let them do that. I'll give thumbs up to the sheriff. He didn't run and hide in his office and try to blow it off, try to spin the story. He did a public announcement. He did a video. It looks like it was a rehearsed video. Didn't do it in front of anybody, I don't think. But, with that video, I really think that those two deputies should have been paraded out in front of the camera, and each one of them should have got up there and apologized to three people. They should apologize to Mr. Hodges for doing what they did, falsely arresting him, falsely detaining him, violating his rights, arresting him, and I got a radio on here somewhere, arresting him and violating his rights. They should be apologizing to him. Secondly, they should be apologizing to the sheriff's department and every other good police officer in the country for acting like a jerk, being a dick, as that carpet muncher said. Why are you being a dick? Well, we know who was being a dick. And finally, most importantly, those two officers, deputies, should be apologizing to the taxpayers because they're going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money. I hope Mr. Hodges gets a good lawyer, sues the pants off of them, and doesn't settle for anything less than $1 million. To send a message, because this is the only way we're ever going to clean anything up, is through the wallet. When it starts affecting the taxpayer's wallet and people start asking, why do we pay out $1 million last year? Why is our taxes going up? Why are these things all happening? That's when things are going to change. The videos are affecting it, but when you hit them in the pocket That's just how it is here in America. Until you hit the person in the pocket, nothing, very little changes. So that officer, both those deputies need to apologize. And finally, with that, is that money is never going to come out of those officers' pockets. And I posted on the Columbia County Sheriff's Department's Facebook page, you know, how much of that lawsuit, that forthcoming lawsuit that impending lawsuit that we all know is coming. I hope it's coming. I'll be very disappointed if Mr. Hodges doesn't file it. So here we go. Somebody's going to bother me. Nope, he's going to walk by. Some guy just walked by. He had to peek in the window to see what I was doing. Anyway, getting back to what I was talking about. We all know now, one dime is coming out of those deputies' pockets, and this is the problem. And this is where qualified immunity needs to be re-looked at and modified. They got to have a dog in a fight. All right, a lot of officers, I've talked to some cops about this, and they say, well, you know, the minute we got to get liability, nobody's going to want to be a cop. Well, what's the problem? You know, I'd say, if you get the liability and you act professionally and you do your job properly, there shouldn't be any lawsuits. The same thing like, you know, I said, if you're a drunk driver and you drive like an asshole all the time, getting in accidents and everything, your insurance goes up. Goes up to the point where you can't get insurance, so you can't drive. But if you drive well and behave yourself and be a conscientious driver and try to drive safe, it won't be a problem. It's only a problem to bad drivers or bad cops. So that's what I said to these cops. Say, look, you know, you're all supposed to be professionals. That's what I keep hearing all the time. Well-trained professional heroes. So it shouldn't be a problem. But in the same token, I think the cops can't be liable for everything, because there's going to be situations where they did something, had to think on the fly, and their decision that was done in good faith, and that's the key word, good faith. If the officer did something good faith, he should not be on the hook for everything. So you got to see the situation right. Maybe the cops got to get X amount of insurance, and the town has to pick up the other half of it, so the town and the officer are both equally liable on this situation, because this is how we're going to fix the problem. And until these bad cops have a dog in a fight, nothing, it's a change is going to be slow to come. Let's see what else I got here. So, so the sheriff, he doesn't believe the deputies were guided by ill intent. Well, I say bullshit on that. That cop, not so much Deputy Carpet Muncher, though she was being stupid. She was out there, you know, the guy showed me, look, it's a walking stick, that should have been the end of it, and she had escalated. But really, the sergeant who showed up, he really was ill intent, because he got his feelings hurt, he got his ego hurt, and now he's going to show Mr. Hodges who the boss is. And the way I see it, that's ill intent. That was retaliation for a man invoking his rights. And that's where they're going to get in trouble with the lawsuit, because Mr. Hodges invoked his rights, and that sergeant retaliated by doing what they do best, which is to arrest somebody and cause them headaches. But fortunately, it's all blown up in those two deputies' faces, and that's what's great about it. So let's get a good hand clap for that. It all blew up in their faces. They're going to be sitting home with thinking about what they did. And the sergeant, the best thing about him is he's being demoted. That means he's going to be a deputy now, not a sergeant. So his pay's going to drop. That means his pension's going to drop. And let's see what else. The sheriff, saddened by the impact. He wants our trust and our respect. Well, Sheriff, you will get my full respect when you fire that sergeant. That's the only way you get my full respect, is fired. When these sheriffs and chiefs of police start firing these bastards, and stop with excuses and the disclaimers, and, you know, there's always excuses. And this thing about remedial. We're going to send them for remedial training. No, you know what? They got the training already. That sergeant's been on the job how many years? He doesn't need training. I'll give him some good training. Fire his ass. That'll be the best training he ever got. Anyway, that's about all I got to say about that. I know there's a lot of videos out there with people giving their takes on things, but this is a very good example. I'm going to close it up with this. This is a very good example of a narcissist. Now, I don't think they're psychopaths, probably more like just a bad case of narcissists. And wherever narcissists go, trouble follows. They create problems everywhere they go. Look in your own life, and you've had to deal with a pain in the ass person, a difficult person. Were they narcissists? Was it all about them? Were they trying to control you? Were they trying to push you around and make you behave the way they think you should behave? Because that's what those two deputies did, particularly the sergeant. He was trying to make that man behave the way they want to behave, and he invoked his rights. And people, remember, the Bill of Rights are there to protect you against government overreach. Nothing else. And this myth about honor your oath, that's propaganda, pal, people. It's propaganda, because the Bill of Rights is designed to protect you against government overreach. And who do the police work for? They are instruments of the government. They are the long arm of the government. So for an officer to honor his oath and honor the Bill of Rights, it goes against their job. They'd never get anything done, I guess. If I don't know if that's really the word to say. It would just make their job so much difficult, because they wouldn't be able to violate people's rights. They'd have to say, well, you know, that man has a right to do that. I'll just have to leave him alone. Well, we know cops don't behave like that. They push it. And it works. When they push, it works with people who don't know their rights. It works with people who are not confident and don't are question their own beliefs about their rights. That's where it works. And these cops have learned over time that they get a lot of people out there who watch the video one time but aren't confident in what their rights are, and they cave in. But Mr. Hodges did not cave in, and that was a good thing. And you see how it went. Yeah, he probably could have just given up his ID and these officers would have been on their way. But you know what? That's just it's just reinforcing what cops do, which is that drug. They got to have that ID. And they just think they've been conditioned by us, by the public. They've been conditioned by us. We have to own part of this too. They've been conditioned that people will give them their ID when they ask. And when you don't give them the ID, you're retraining them. You're training them with your behavior. You're showing them with your behavior that you're not getting my ID because they didn't do anything wrong, and you're not entitled to it, so kick rocks and get out of here. And you get a good cop who respects you and is professional. He knows the rules, and he's going to back down and say, yeah, okay, you don't want to get, I've seen the good cops that they ask for, can I see your ID? And the person says, no, I'd rather not. Okay, well, that's your right. And off they go. But the bad cop, you know how it goes. They got to escalate. So, all right, let me know what you think in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe. Follow me on Facebook. I'm posting every day. There's not a day go by, I don't think, where I don't post a story about some bad cop across America doing something that's either hurting somebody or violating somebody's rights or unlawfully locking them up or hurting these people and putting them in jail. It's everywhere. So go to Gunnison Undercover on Facebook. You can find it there. You can comment on there. And that's that. So, all right, people, till next time.